Even at 95, Clint Eastwood admitted something shocking about the love that changed him forever. Clint Eastwood, the icon, the legend, the man with a gaze that could silence a room, from spaghetti westerns to Oscar-winning films, he's been untouchable on screen. But off-screen, behind the stoic facade, lies a story of passion, heartbreak, and a woman who left a mark no fame could erase. Today, we dive deep into the chapter of Eastwood's life that even decades of success couldn't heal. Want more behind-the-scenes Hollywood drama? Subscribe now, it's totally free! Clint Eastwood wasn't born a Hollywood legend. He came into the world in 1930 San Francisco, smack in the middle of the Great Depression. Life was hard. His family moved constantly across California, while his father chased work as a steel worker and a migrant laborer. Imagine a young Clint hopping from town to town, never fully settling, learning early on that nothing in life is handed to you. You have to fight for every inch. These were the kind of experiences that built his famous grit, his quiet toughness, and a kind of stubborn independence that would later define both the characters he played on screen and the man himself. Eastwood's rise to fame didn't happen overnight. He started small, taking odd jobs and minor acting gigs while trying to find his place. Then came Rawhide, the Western TV series that made him a household name. For 6 years, he played Rowdy Yates, a role that seemed simple on the surface, but taught him discipline, timing, and how to captivate an audience without saying a word. Even then, you could sense a spark. He wasn't just an actor, he was someone destined to change the game. But the real turning point came when Hollywood met Italy. Sergio Leone saw something in Clint, a steely gaze, a silence that spoke louder than dialogue. Together, they created the Dollars Trilogy, a fistful of dollars for a few dollars more, and the good, the bad, and the ugly. Suddenly, Eastwood wasn't just a TV cowboy. He became a global icon, the man with no name, a character so cold, so enigmatic, so morally ambiguous that audiences couldn't look away. It was more than fame, it was the birth of a myth. And behind that myth was a young man who had learned early that the world wouldn't wait for him. He had to grab it. By the 1970s, Clint Eastwood wasn't just acting, he was commanding. Dirty Harry Callahan hit theaters in 1971, and suddenly America was captivated by a new kind of hero. Unflinching, relentless, and willing to bend the rules to get justice. Eastwood wasn't just playing a cop. He was channeling the fears and frustrations of a society grappling with crime, corruption, and a distrust of authority. Every line, every stare, every gun drawn in Dirty Harry reinforced the persona audiences loved and feared. But Eastwood didn't stop there. While most actors fade with age, he reinvented himself as a director, quietly mastering the craft while the world was still dazzled by his on-screen presence. He started with Play Misty for me, but it was films like Unforgiven that cemented his genius. With Unforgiven, he didn't just tell a story, he tore apart the myths of the Old West, revealing the violence, the regret, and the moral complexity that most movies ignored. Then came Mystic River, Million Dollar Baby, and American Sniper, films that were not just successful, they were culturally seismic, emotionally devastating, and intellectually provocative. Even into his 90s, Eastwood refuses to slow down. Films like Cry Macho show a man who has survived decades of Hollywood politics, fame, and personal drama, yet still has the courage to challenge cinematic norms. He's not just an actor or a director, he's a storyteller who uses his own life, his own struggles, and his own understanding of human nature to create work that resonates across generations. And yet, despite all the accolades, awards, and global recognition, there's a part of Clint Eastwood that even decades of fame haven't touched, and that's the story we're about to uncover. Off-screen, Clint Eastwood's life was just as dramatic and complicated as any of his movies. He married Maggie Johnson in 1953, a model he met on a blind date, and together they had 2 children. On paper, it looked like a classic Hollywood marriage. But fame has a way of complicating even the strongest relationships. Eastwood's growing stardom, long hours on set, and the temptations of Hollywood quickly created distance. By 1984, their marriage ended in a divorce that reportedly cost tens of millions, a staggering figure at the time. Yet, Clint didn't disappear into solitude. Behind the scenes, he was involved with multiple women, often simultaneously, a pattern that would follow him for decades. Roxanne Tunis, a dancer and stuntwoman, became the mother of his daughter Kimber, though her paternity wasn't publicly recognized for years. There was Frances Fisher, who brought another daughter, Francesca, into his life, and Dana Ruiz, whom he married much later and shared 1 child with. And then there was the one woman whose impact would leave him shaken in a way Hollywood could never prepare him for, Sondra Locke. What makes Clint Eastwood's personal life so fascinating isn't just the number of relationships or the high-profile drama, it's the secrecy, the tension, the way he kept parts of his life hidden while still remaining a public figure. It's a delicate balance of power, desire, and vulnerability. Behind every headline, every tabloid rumor, there's a story that's deeper, more human, and sometimes almost impossible to imagine. And that's where Locke enters, a chapter that would redefine what we thought we knew about Eastwood, both as a man and a legend. In 1975, Clint Eastwood met Sondra Locke, and nothing would ever be the same. From the very first moment on the set of The Outlaw Josie Wales, something shifted. Locke wasn't just another actress. She was intelligent, sharp, and fearless. A woman who saw through the myth of Clint Eastwood and found the man beneath. Where other relationships allowed him to stay untouchable, Locke challenged him emotionally and artistically, forcing him to confront feelings he had long buried. Their relationship lasted over 13 years, a roller coaster of passion, tension, and collaboration. They weren't just lovers, they were creative partners, pushing each other on set, testing each other's limits, and inspiring performances that would go down in cinematic history. But behind the cameras, their lives were anything but smooth. Eastwood was simultaneously involved with other women, and the public and private pressures began to build, creating a storm that neither of them could control. What makes this story extraordinary isn't the scandal, it's the intensity, the emotional vulnerability, and the way Locke seemed to break through Clint's impenetrable armor. For a man who had faced war, grueling film sets, and decades of Hollywood scrutiny, she was different. She didn't just love him, she saw him. And that sight was both a gift and a kind of power, one that left an imprint on his heart that decades, fame, and fortune could never erase. Even now, decades later, Eastwood reflects on Locke with a mixture of reverence and wonder. She wasn't a chapter he could close. She was a part of him, one that defined both the man and the legend. Their story isn't just romance, it's a masterclass in emotional intensity and how love can challenge, break, and transform even the strongest among us. Clint Eastwood's life is defined by reinvention, resilience, and an unshakable dedication to art. But his legacy is more than the films, the Oscars, and the iconic characters. It's also about the quiet moments, the stolen glances, the emotional battles, the hidden wounds that have shaped him as a man. Locke left a mark so deep that even decades later, he reflects on her with reverence, pain, and a kind of awe. She wasn't just another chapter in his life, she was a force that redefined him. Even at 95, Eastwood thinks back not to the scandals or lawsuits, not even to the movies they made together, but to the intimate human moments, the laughter between takes, the silent looks that said more than words ever could. Those moments were fleeting, yet they left a permanent impression. They remind us that behind every icon, behind every legend, is a human being capable of heartbreak, transformation, and profound emotion. And perhaps that is the true power of Clint Eastwood's story. Not his films, not his fame, not even his toughness, but the way he loved, the way he was vulnerable, and the way one woman changed the course of his life forever. Locke wasn't just part of his past. She's part of his very identity. And that, more than any award or role, is what makes Eastwood unforgettable. So the next time you think of a legend, remember this. Sometimes the stories behind the stardom, the scars we don't see, are far more powerful than anything the spotlight ever captures. Clint Eastwood may be a Hollywood legend, but his most enduring story isn't on the big screen. It's the woman who left him changed forever. And at 95, his confession reminds us that some emotional wounds, no matter how long ago, never truly fade. Who in your life has left a mark you'll never forget? Sometimes the most powerful stories are the ones behind the fame.